long time, but yeah.
Yes, we are all doing great. How about you?
Doing well. Anybody progressing in their careers yet from our last conversation? Okay, and how's work from home going? Or is it over and
No, we
Going
started
good,
going to office.
Yes.
that's great.
kind of hybrid,
Are
but
you
we
enjoying
can
it?
see not really.
Not wow. And you're going like 5 days a week or just like 1 or 2 days right now?
One
We
day.
are doing 3 days. 3 days
Okay.
office, 2 days in home.
Okay, that's
Following
great.
people.
That's not bad. All right. So, folks, this being your last module, what we were thinking was to summarize all learnings, what we've basically gone through throughout your past 1 or 2 years that you spent, and what we will be doing is associating it with like how we can actually apply those knowledges now. We've been doing sort of theoretical, sort of lab work as well, but very specific to those modules. And what we will be doing is tying up that knowledge in terms of how we can use this in securing, systems which are based out of cloud, which are hosted there, since most of them are nowadays in cloud itself. But the same concepts can be applied to data centers as well. So things don't change over there. It's just the way that we spawn infrastructure. But other than that, the idea here is to get everything together, summarize this entire learning module that you've had in a way that we can actually use it, in a way that we have been in touch with it also in our day-to-day office lives as well. Some parts, yes, from like infrastructure security, cloud security, those type of things is something which we will cover, which will involve a lot more things like penetration testing, blah 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 as well. But some parts of it will, so like governance etc., I will be touching up as well in some points relating to how we actually do it rather than getting into the theoretical way of it. So this module is going to be 100% practical. I don't have any slides to go ahead with. I will just be whiteboarding with you. We will be applying the same whiteboarding in cloud. We will be doing it step by step. So more and more feedback from you, more and more discussions we get into is like how we can start, really bringing out the value here. If you have like any questions in terms of your infrastructure, how things are set up, we can just create a use case out of that and pick that up as well. So idea here is we make it more interactive. This is not a delivery module where I'm going to be coming and giving you some theory and some practicals and we close this module. The idea is that we build things together, we see how we can secure them, we see what type of basic security we need to put in. We understand different terminologies there. In case some topics are unclear, we pick them up. So that is the whole idea of this module. So more and more interaction is something which I would really, like, and also don't miss out sessions in this because there is no theoretical part to it, which I would, which you can refer back to. So more that you're in the class, more that you're discussing things, you will be that much more happier as well. So there is nothing to study in terms of theoretical knowledge here. Any questions before I go over the lesson plan once?
Thanks, Dhruv. I also want to put a word. This is the last module. I was with another session starting since it is 10 o'clock. So everyone knows Dhruv. And again, my biggest request is that this is a module which connects all the dots because you have to actually do security on cloud, on edge, on live as much as possible. So I'm sure this module is going to help you in that way. Plus, there are this whole class, almost 90% of them are still figuring out what is the project. Dhruv has, and I keep saying this, Dhruv has absolutely with brilliance, he has built multiple such use cases and built an entire ecosystem for Make My Trip from open source. That means he is sitting with thousands of projects. And it can be a very tiny scope. You don't have to boil the whole ocean. You need a small tiny part of it. So please connect and discuss at least sometime. If you are interested in maybe more cloud security projects or something absolutely on threat hunting, forensic, and Dhruv is an expert in all these areas, please define your project also along with this module while you are practicing on cloud. AWS access has been given, Azure access has been given. What we don't get to see is something coming back from each of you. There is so much has been given, but what is that we are getting back from you is not very clear, right? That's not how the masters is. Master means you must now master and you must go and teach others to bring mastery. So, and it is not that everyone knows everything. No, including all of us here with hundreds of PhDs also, you will not know anything. But somewhere you start. So take that leap of faith and propose something. Do not think that will my project be good enough. That is because we have not no learned enough or read enough or talked enough. So please connect again on this class again. And my request to all of you is do not stay here in Reva forever because we have to focus on new participants. We cannot keep taking care of old participants because we don't have such bandwidth. So please get out with your degree. Do not hang on here. Sorry for my blunt statement, but we want all of you to hold your convocation degree. That would be the biggest proud moment for all of us. Thanks, Dhruv. Take.
Sure.
Perfect, folks. So I'm just going to be walking you through the module. I don't know if you guys have gone through the lesson plan or not. Uh, the idea is I'm going to be just talking about a few concepts in terms of IAM, in terms of network deployments, third-party accesses, storage, images, backups, and visibility and information. So these are just overview in terms of what they are, what we need to look at or focus at. All going to be whiteboarding sessions. Nothing that I'm going to be giving you theoretical knowledge here. I'm sure that all of you have done most of these things in your courses as well. If there is something that we haven't covered, just let me know. I will get into it then. But again, I'm going to be waiting for you to call it out. If you don't call it out, I'm going to think that you've covered it already. So I'm just going to be talking about the security aspect of these things. We will be looking at shift left as well. There is a big topic nowadays in the market in terms of shift left security. Everybody is doing it. Uh, we need to understand why it's important. We will be also looking at how to implement these things, in cloud as well, in CI/CD. I'm sure all of you have done it as well in some part of your courses. If not, please call it out again. We will focus on this because this is one aspect which is becoming extremely important now. We will be looking at bug bounty platforms as well, how to run them, how to optimize them, why it's not only a good thing, things can go wrong in bug bounties as well. So how do we really cover for it? How do we speak to people? How do we speak to attackers? How can we converse with them in a proper way? So all these kind of things is something which I'll be discussing with you. We'll be looking at some use cases today itself where we'll be looking at building infrastructure just to get a standard structure up and running. And then we can look at how we can start securing that infrastructure as well. So we'll be doing this today as well if I'll be using AWS. If somebody wants to use Azure, go ahead with it. I have no problem. If somebody wants to use some other data center like DigitalOcean or GCP as well, if you're more comfortable with it, go ahead. I have no problem. The idea is that we have similar kind of infrastructure in place, and then we can just have the similar kind of discussions there. So what platform you're using, I'm really not bothered about. The ideas, the concepts come in. We'll be looking at a couple of edge-based computations. So the concept of having or offloading most of requests on edge, basically, or as people call them, content delivery networks plus security away from the infrastructure. That is something that we're going to be discussing as well. We're going to be looking at how to do architecture design reviews. Although there are a lot of applications or people come up with requirements, but how do we actually look at them? What do we need to assess from a architecture design perspective? What do we need to get into? What are the aspects that we'll have to look at? So those are things that we'll be discussing in terms of iOS and Android security. Uh, we have a lot of solutions in place. People generally run solutions to see, okay, if these applications are secure. I'm not going to be looking at penetration testing them, but I will be talking about what we can actually entail in terms of looking at overall security of these applications. What do we need to look at it? One part is pen testing of this application for sure, but I'm just going to be calling it out. We're going to be talking about what all we actually need to do, etc. How do we create visibility? What kind of calls do we actually need to see? What kind of data do we actually need to capture? All those things. We'll be looking at data privacy. So we have some people operate out of a single region, some people operate out of multiple regions, some operating out of multiple clouds itself, different kind of customers, different kind of ecosystems. How do we look at privacy? How do we start defining that? How can we define it in infrastructure itself? How do we use shared infrastructure across multi regions? So this is something that we'll be talking about. We'll be talking about best practices for IAM, least privilege, etc. How do we actually look at IAM at scale? Because all these things sound very nice. That yes, I'm going to build a user. I'm going to be, limiting that user's access, etc. But how do we do it at scale where we say that we have over 1,000 people or 1,500 people accessing it, everybody having different needs, etc. So how do we take care of all of that? We have secret management as a huge concept which is coming now. We've seen how secrets exposed can actually cause a lot of issues, not only exposure but also rotation. So we'll be looking at how we can do key management and how vaults exactly work. How can we deploy them in the best possible way? We'll be looking at something called as consent management, privacy concepts or compliance concepts like GDPR, etc., CCKs, all coming up. India, I don't know when they'll come up with their draft to get finalized, but how do we actually define consent management? Why is it important? What all can we capture? What do we look at? What is the concept of just clicking that accept banner when you're clicking, say, I want to consent to cookies? What can you still collect? Another topic which comes up from this are privacy policies. So yes, it's a link between both, but how do we actually define them? Why do we need to keep them updated? What actually do we define? How much information do we need to give to the customer? All those kind of things we'll be discussing. Uh, Another concept is around third party access. It can either be on your data, or it can be that they're punching data in, or it can be that they want to access your cloud resources. So how do we do that in the best possible way? And then we'll be closing with single sign-on for cloud resources, etc. We'll be looking at RBAC. We'll be looking at IDP and OAuth as concepts because they're there and we need to discuss them because in cloud you'll be using it very, very frequently. And looking at JWT as well. So overall, we'll be just closing with some authentication and authorization, and that's going to be summarizing it in some total for you. The idea is that we're going to be building infrastructure on AWS itself, and then speaking about all these topics that I just discussed. I'm again saying that in case as a baseline of knowledge that you don't have an idea about a topic, let me know. I will then discuss it, and then we will only get into it. Any questions?
No, Dhruv.
All right. Okay. For those people, I mean, for everybody rather, you would have received an email for AWS Academy. If you do log into that, you will see your courses come up over here, something called as AWS Academy Cloud Foundations. So if you guys can just log into that, that will be nice because we'll just launch the lab. It takes about 5-7 minutes to come up. In the meantime, we'll start discussing things. But for you to launch the labs, you need to come to courses and then click on modules and come all the way down to module 4. And you will see something here as lab 1 introduction to AWS IAM. And you need to just click on the start lab button over here. It will set up your lab for you. It takes about 4 to 5 minutes to come up. Once you see the screen, just let me know. Then I can start with the concepts or what we need to discuss. So just to reiterate, once you log in, click on courses, click on select AWS Cloud Foundation, click on
I'm
modules.
getting the it says refuse to connect.
Just share your screen once, please. Just hit Control Shift I once and just see where this call is failing. Just go to network and see where this call is failing and just refresh this page. On the top right, you will see sources. On the after sources, you see a double arrow. Just click on that. Just go to network. Yeah. And just say preserve log on the top right. Just tick that. Now just refresh this page. Just scroll down a little bit. Just click on login.php where it's saying blocked. And just click on response. Just click on the response tab. Okay. And just click on headers once again. Could you just try a different browser or something once?
Yeah, I'll try. This is incognito. I'll try the other one.
Yeah, or just try logging in from one of the machines in Reva. Might be your IP is blacklisted or something. Shouldn't be an issue like that.
So I can ask
Okay, I'll
Jordan, sir. You
Yeah,
can look into it once.
yeah. Anybody else facing an issue here? Till you're coming to lab, and it should just say lab status in creation. Once this is done, it will stay created, but you should be here in terms of in creation. Just raise your hand once it's done and created. I'll know to start and move on.
Okay.
So again, reiterating, login, go to modules, click on AWS Cloud Foundation, click on modules again, come down to module 4, you will see a lab 1 introduction to AWS IAM. Just click on that and then just click on start lab. Once your lab is created, you will see something like lab status ready, and that's where you need to be at.
Yeah, it worked in normal Chrome. It was incognito, so
Okay, perfect. Just raise your hands once you're done with clicking on start lab, then I can start.
Mine is ready.
Perfect. Just wait for everyone else.
So can you once share your screen? Just to be confirmed. I have started the
Sure.
lab.
Sure. This is what you should see. So you come to courses, you click
Yeah.
on cloud foundation, you click on modules, scroll down to module 4, click on lab, sorry, click on lab 1. And then just click on start lab.
Yeah, it's integration.
Perfect. Okay. Okay. Till these things are coming up, I've just shared a link with all of you. I'm just going to be doing some whiteboarding here. In case you want to refer it at a later date, you can just open that link and refer at it at any point in time. So, okay. All right. So starting with a few concepts, right? Why I made you launch a lab is because we will be building these things in parallel as well. I'm not just going to be talking as a generic lecture here or giving you theory concepts like I said. So idea is that we will start to build infrastructure from scratch, just as you would do it if you were launching, say, your own, if you were working in your own organization or launching your own company, etc. in AWS, right? Some of you will be proficient with it, some of you will not have an idea about it. So I will start from the basics to get up and running so that everybody is at the same page. But idea here is what we will be doing today majorly is we'll be building something called as a VPC, right? Which is nothing but a network. We will be using different kind of subnets. We will be launching instances here. We will be deploying dummy web applications on these. We will be looking at all concepts regarding to securing outer layers, subnets, instances, where on instances we'll be also talking about IAM as a concept, right? And we'll take it from there. But before I begin, how many of you have an idea about working with AWS in terms of like creating infrastructure, etc.?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. What about everybody else?
I do have.
All right, perfect. Okay, so then these things should go quick. That's fine. But all right. So first thing first, why do we need to look at identity, right? So in identity, basic things what we have already learned is around having authentication and second thing having authorization. Anybody unclear about what these two things mean or what the clear differentiation between them is?
Right is clear.
Perfect. All right. So first things first, in identity, you want to have proper authentication, you want to have proper authorization. So any resources that we are accessing, right, you would want to define them in such a way that only the right applications or systems or users or anything else can access it, right? For example, if we're deploying something that we want to get only say one person to access, then ideally only that one person should do it. uh, when we want to get people to accept systems or say inter-system communication, we want to make sure only those specific systems can access it. If we talk about users, we want to only make sure that, for example, if I need to access this, then only I can do it. And then any other solution, for example, any service or anything else or any third party, that is what we want to make sure that people are accessing the right kind of things, right? For this, everything in AWS in today's day and age is done via something called as an IAM service. The IAM service controls everything in terms of users, in terms of access, in terms of authorization. So there are different things of how you can do it, but majorly this service is basically used for aspects of access, right? And for access, there are two ways of going about this, at least in AWS. I'm using terminologies for AWS, but same terminologies apply in Azure as well. But there you have principles, here you have IAM. So in Azure, you're connecting with something called as Active Directory, which it spawns up for yourself. In IAM, that concept is not there. Here you have something called as a root account. So things change and vary cloud to cloud a little bit, but conceptually things remain the same, right? So if you do have any questions at any point in time, just let me know. So from an IAM perspective, we will be looking at users. We'll be looking at how these users can get access. Then we'll be looking at how to restrict users to correct resources. And additionally, we'll be also looking at how we can define this access programmatically. Okay, so dividing these into four concepts. If you've started your lab, if you can just come to, if you see the box as ready, just click on something called as AWS. You'll see an account like this getting opened up for you. You'll come to a screen like this.
Yeah.
So what was the command that you typed?
I'm sorry.
What was the command you typed?
You should click on AWS.
I just didn't do it. I just clicked on AWS here on your.
Okay, not the command. Okay, got it. Good.
Just close the screen and just click on AWS here. Once you're here, just click on something, or you can just use search, or you can also just click on services over here and you'll get an entire list. If you want to do it via the list, you can click on security, identity and compliance, and you will find IAM over here. If you want to do it in a shorter way, you can just search for IAM here and you will see it come up and you can just click on that. Just let me know once everybody is on the screen.
Yeah.
Yep, I'm in.
Okay, perfect. Once you click on users, once you're here on the screen, just click on users and another screen should open out for you, which you will see multiple users basically as user 1, user 2, user 3, blah, blah, being created.
Yeah.
Right? Now, these are physical users who you have or who can access your account, right? Uh, these users also have access to something called as your console, and how we know about that is if you click on any of these users over here, you will see multiple things. Let's let it open up. Yeah, you will see multiple things come up like permission policies. You will see something called as groups. You will see something called as tags. You will see something called as security credentials. You will see something called as access advisors, right? Now, for all of these users that we've seen, right? Uh, although we will come into a different account where we will get access to these as well. Sorry, a different lab module. So how in AWS Academy labs are designed are for every specific thing that they teach you, they give you that requisite amount of access only, right? So when we launching lab one, you will only get access to say specific things where they want to talk about IAM, etc. and that specific aspect. So that's why you will see that you need permissions, etc. keep coming up here and there. So that's fine. You can ignore that. It's more important to understand the concept in itself. So in terms of users, what we can do in the user screen is, for example, if don't have any federated login, if I don't have, say, Windows Active Directory, I don't have any cloud SSO, I don't have any identity access management solution. For example, like one login, for example, like Okta, etc., which is basically like a single sign-on concept for me. You can come here and create physical users on your machine or say on your environment by coming here, by clicking on add users. You will be able to define what user there is. You will be able to define an email ID, and you will be able to define whether they can what part they can access. So how do we understand what part they can access is around, just give me a second. Yeah, so when you come here, you will see there are no permissions currently set on this user itself, right? You will just see a user is created. And for this, I've clicked on user one. You can click on any user one, two, three, whatever you want, right? And you will see that there are no permissions currently attached to this user at the moment, right? Now, how do we start attaching permissions to this user? So for example, today, if I log in with this user, or if I try using this user at the moment, they will, the moment that they log in, they will just keep seeing access denied. They will not be able to access any part of your cloud at all, right? They will not even be able to open your dashboard, anything related to anything on AWS, because there is no permission policy attached at the moment. Okay, how do we give
I,
permissions?
I
Yeah,
have a question here. So we have four users. One is the student, and then user one, user two, user three. The
yeah,
student one is the console username, user ID, right? So which has the complete rights on the whatever changes we are going to do. So in a
yes, absolutely.
real production environment, also that will be the owner of the uh, tenant or whatever VPC we are
Yeah,
spinning. Correct?
yes, you're correct.
Okay.
But they will not be the owner of a VPC. They'll be owner of an account.
Owner of an account. Okay.
Yeah. So you can have multiple VPCs in one account. VPC is nothing but a network.
Mm.
Okay, it's just a virtual network, which we call it. So you can have 10 networks, 20 networks, 30 networks. You can have 100 networks as well in one single account. So a user is tagged to an account level.
Okay.
It is not tagged to anything else. And the IAM service that we have itself is, so in AWS, there are some things called as global services, and there is something called as region specific services. Okay.
Okay.
In global services, these services, if you define in an account, they are available everywhere. What I
Oh,
mean by this is that any of these services that you use, it is not going to be region specific. For example, if I come and deploy some service, say in Singapore region, or say if I come and deploy it in say US East region, there are
mm,
some services which I do not need to bother about by looking at which region they are. So once I define these services, they are available in all the 10, 20, 30 regions that I operate out of.
okay.
All right. For region specific services, these services, if I deploy in any specific region, then the other regions cannot access them, or you will need to define the services individually in every region. So if I'm operating out of 10 regions, if I'm operating out of 20 regions, I would need to define these region specific services in each region separately. To give you examples of this, global services include IAM. So IAM, no matter what you do when you click on, when you click on IAM over here, it
Mhm.
will always take you to something called as global over here.
Okay.
Okay, you do not have an option to select a specific region over here.
Okay.
And for AWS, all their global services lie in the US East 1 region. Any global service that you look at.
Okay.
Right. Similarly, if you go to something called as EC2, which is basically nothing but virtual machines for AWS, it's just not a terminology. If you come here, you will see your region tabs gets enabled, and you can do this individually in every region.
Okay.
All right. So there's a difference in terms of how we launch services and how we can access them everywhere, or in single regions or in multi regions. Some services, yes, they're available everywhere. You do not have an option of selecting them in individual regions. Some services, yes, they're available in individual regions. So actually, most services are available in individual regions, except a common few, which is access management, logging, storage. Even storage you can get in different regions, but certain things like S3, etc., are global services which you can deploy in region specific services as well.
Okay. So if we say the account student is the uh, super admin kind of account, so do we have a inbuilt two-factor authentication for this super admin? Because after the super admin, in real scenario, we'll be adding our external identity access management, like let's say integrating with Okta or integrating with Active Directory, right? We are not going to use the user groups or
Yep,
users in
yep,
the real scenarios,
yep.
correct?
So yes, for AWS, everything or the master account which we will not have access to at the moment is something called as a root account.
Mm-hmm.
So every time you create an account, there is something called as a root account which is created, right? With the root account, you get uh, say full access to this entire account that you've created,
Mm.
right? What account am I talking about? Account is this account ID that you get.
Yep.
Okay, I'm still not talking about an organization. I will talk about it why it's important as well. But right now I'm just talking to an account level. When you are a root user, you will get access to this account in all ways. You can add second factors on this. I mean, it's a must actually to do it, because AWS in itself starts creating a lot of noise if you don't add a second factor on this. But you can add second factors on this account as well,
Okay.
right? In terms of how users can access accounts, either you come to users and I just come to say add user, and I just give you say whatever test. I give you what type of access do you require. Do you also require access to say CLIs, SDKs, etc., or do you only want to access this console? Right? If I give both, you can select an auto-generated password, or you can put a password here. So for example, I just select AutoGen, and now you can come and select what type of permissions this user should have. Okay, this is a very legacy way of creating users. In today's day and age, we don't do it this way at all, or it is refrained upon or it is frowned upon, because every user that you create can access your console using the password that you set, or can access your entire account programmatically as well using something called as access keys. Right? These access keys can access anything in your account for this user as long as the permission policies are attached here. Okay, so if I have one specific user and their ways of logging in currently is console via password, you can have you can have 2FA set up here as an option, but this is optional, depends on how you want to do it, right? And they can access your account in a programmatic manner. Yeah. Via SDKs. So you get an AWS SDK, or you can just use the CLI as well. This entire concept here works on something called as, which works on the concept of access key and a secret. Okay. Third way of getting into an account, right? It's not a different way, I would say, but is that you don't use this console part, or you don't use this users part, but we use our own single sign-on methodology to trigger into console or to trigger into programmatic access.
Okay, so what I understood is for an account, there will be one root user. So using that one root user, we use our own SSO settings or availability of tools what we have. Based on that, we can create even multiple root users.
You can have a single root user, you can have multiple admin users.
Sorry, I can have one root user and plus, what is that?
You can only have a single root user in an account.
Only single user account, root user.
Root user can only be one. Yes.
But the same privilege access what root user has, we can create in our user groups or.
Absolutely. Yeah. I will just be showing that how that works, but just wanted to explain this part. So yes, you can get the same kind of access what root users have via something called as administrator access. It's one step down from a root user. What it does, like admins cannot access account related or organization related things. So if there is something in terms of an org which I define, or in something in terms of an account which I can define, those things can only be modified or read by a root user.
Okay.
But
So
everything else, those admin users can do.
this root user has any like password retention or what is the that will be set by AWS by itself, right?
Yeah.
I
So
cannot. Yeah.
whenever you set up an AWS account, you get a root user. For that root user, you generally set up your own password when you're creating an AWS account. And additionally, what you can do is you can safeguard it with a 2FA on that, on top of it.
Okay. So every 90 days or any 60 days, should I
Yeah,
renew the password?
it'll expire your password very soon. It expires it after 180 days, not 90 days, but you can keep changing that. I mean, you have to keep changing it.
You have to keep changing it. Okay.
Right now, so in terms of users right now, what we have something called as permissions, right? I will just get to this part right now. Just give me like another 10 minutes. I will get to this. But in terms of users, how we can define permissions is you click on add permissions over here, and there are something called as pre-built or inline permissions which AWS already has, which they've defined as standards which everybody uses, right? Or you can set up your own permissions to whatever level you want to, right? So for this, you have something called as existing policies. So if you click on attach existing policies, you will see all Amazon services policies already here, right? Remember, these are just for their own services. In case you create, you want to have resource based access policies as well. For that, you will have to custom write policies. But for example, I want to give user one admin access. You can come click here. You can see what type of access does it give. So if you just wait for this to load. Yeah, you will see something here that on all these services that are there, if you click on admin access, you will be giving full access to all resources to this user. If I'm okay with that, you can tick it here. If you're not okay with that, oh, why is this working so slow? If you're okay with that, you just tick it and you click next. You come up here, it just says it's a managed policy by Amazon itself, and I'm going to be providing admin access here. So you click on add permissions. Okay, we don't have rights to do it in this place, but that's how you do it. Okay, in case you want to further segregate access here, for example, you say I want to give admin on say billing, but I don't want to give admin on any of the other services. In that case, what we will do is we come to something called as create policy. And in create policy, you will see a 4 type kind of thing which comes up, which says what service do you want access to. Okay, over here you can come and select any of the pre-built baked in services that are there. So anytime you're in Amazon, you will be talking to one of these services. Now, for example, you want access to one specific service. So for example, I want access to backup service, right? Do you want access to all of it, or do you want specific kind of access? So if you click on all, it ticks everything, gives you full access on it. In case you say no, I only want to give somebody say read permissions and list permissions, so then you just tick list and read here. This policy that you're creating will not have write access on it then. Okay, for example, even in read, you want to control that they can only say get a plan, or they can only list the tags, etc. as well. You can also control it there. And as a third part on any policy is around which resource do you want it. So should this policy apply to all resources in say the service backup, or do you want to go to a specific service here or specific resource, sorry. Okay, to simplify this, if I just select something like EC2 over here, EC2 is nothing but virtual machines. And if I say I want to allow people to come and list EC2 machines over here, and that too, I want to only allow them to list a specific instance. I don't want them to see what all instances are running in my account. I only want them to say come and access that one instance, or say only list that one instance. You can come here and click and add your ARN here. How do you get the ARNs? ARNs you can get from the console itself. So if you come to instances and you click on lab host, okay, if you just scroll down a little bit, you will get okay. You don't have permission for that as well. Great. Anyway, one second.
ARN is there.
Why can I not see it? Where are you seeing it? Where I'm not seeing it?
On the right it came actually. The Bastion host one, yeah. User ARN AWS.
Yeah, that is the user ARN. It's not the resource ARN.
Okay.
Okay, anyways, we'll create it and I'll show it to you as well, right? That where the ARN comes in from. But even if I don't have the ARN, what I can do is you can
Insert
come here. Yeah, go ahead.
insert ID, right?
Yeah, you can just add the instance ID then, right? So basis of the instance ID, then if I modify this, if a user actually logs in, they will only be able to list or see this instance here, right? Further, if you want to define this even further and say that, okay, I want to control more actions. So even in write, if you want to say somebody can come and stop an instance, but they can't delete it, right? Then you only give them something like stop access. We don't give them deletion access. So every action that you can perform here on any specific service is controllable via this policy over here. This is a visual way of doing it. If you want to do it in a more programmatic way of giving access, there is something called as a JSON, right? Where for every yeah, for every possible policy that you define, you can define it via JSON as well. Okay. For example, administrator access simply says that you can allow or you have to allow access on all actions on all resources. Okay. For example, if you just talk about admin access on one specific instance, you will just on one specific service, you will see that this is just giving them allow for a service called amplify, right? And the conditional permissions that you see with it. So we will be doing this as well. I'm just trying to show you that we can control it via the JSON concepts as well, where we can just write JSON and we can say, okay, what type of effect do you want? Do you want to allow it or deny it? What action do you want to allow or deny? And on what resource do you want to do this? So every IAM concept will work on what type of action do you want to do and on what resource do you want to do. Okay, any questions here?
No.
All right. Coming to identity providers or SSOs that we look at. Okay, sorry, before that, uh, there is something called as a concept of roles also, right? And what users do is that you have to basically, for example, now why I say that we don't use this or why we frown upon this a little bit is, for example, I have an organization where I have 1,000 users who are accessing AWS in different ways, right? And now you need to start clubbing them, right? For example, I have a team who is say into financing and accounting and only needs to come and look at say my AWS bill, right? Or there is a tech team who basically is say managing my AWS infrastructure, so they need access to say uh, admin on one single region, right? Now, when there are 10, 20, 30 people, you will not start creating 10, 30 or say 10 accounts, 20 accounts, 30 users, 40 users, right? You will eventually have 1,000 users over here whose permissions you'll be managing individually. And each of those say 1,000 users will have their own credentials, will have their own access keys, which you will start going crazy with by managing it, right? So to get that concept a little more easier, we have a concept called as roles. And what roles do is it basically provides us a way to map service to users, to resources, right? And what this does is that it gives us the ability to access resources without having creating users. So what role-based access or roles exactly does is you define a certain permission, consider this to be sort of like a group, and on this group you do not have any credentials that you create. Okay, so if these are your roles where you can say role 1 is say admin, role 2 says billing, role 3 is say maintenance or whatever SOC you want to call it, right? Each of these roles I give permissions or I define permission policies. Permission policies can say admin star, right? This can basically say, for example, billing star, and say for SOC, you can just say read only on entire account star. So every role that I create, I define policies according to that. What roles will help you do is that now if I have say say 4 users, right? One of them I want to give admin access. The other one I want to give only billing access. And say I have 2 SOC engineers who would require read-only access into my account. Okay. What this would do is you would basically get these people instead of creating say user 1 as an account, user 2 as an account, user 3 as an account, or as many as these can go, right? You might have 1,000. What I will do is I will start with the concept of saying as identity, where basically I say I do not care about how you are authorizing into my account, right? Sorry, I do not care about how you are authenticating into my account. I only care about what kind of authorization do you have. Okay. How do I get what type of authorization do you have? This is how you're doing it. Are these users having the correct password or say correct 2FA to log into here? I do not know and I do not care. But does this user have access to resource 1, 2, 3, 4? That is something I care. That is something I bother about. And that is how we control that via something called as permission policies. How do we group them? We group them into something called as roles. So now if this user is accessing say the admin section, what this role would do is it would just check whether this user has the correct authorization to access admin. Now you would say, why am I not bothering about these 4 users authentication? I am not bothering about this because I don't care whether this is happening via SSO, whether this is happening via Active Directory, whether this is happening via federated logins. It is not my problem anymore in this kind of setup. So what I say is, you take these services and you authenticate users here and just tell me which role should I drop them in. Okay. Once you say, okay, which role should I drop them in? Each role will have a permission policy attached to it. Hence, they will get that access where AWS says, okay, I only care about authorization. Whether you want to set up 2FA here, or you want to set up 3FA, or you want to set up whatever kind of login mechanism you want to set up, you set up over here. Whatever password you want to use, you set up over here. You just give me a trust to say that, okay, this user is authenticated and this is the role that you want to assign to it. All right. This basically works on a concept called as identity providers, right? Identity providers can be anything. It doesn't have to be SSO. It can be federated. It can be OpenID. It can be anything that you want to use. For example, for Active Directory, there is something called as a federation service, which you install on Active Directory. It does nothing but enables Active Directory to start communicating over SAML. Okay, what is SAML? SAML is just a protocol which we use to authenticate between two providers or two services that we don't have direct connectivity or linkages to. So it's a trust-based model. Okay. OpenID can be a concept which people use, for example, Google logins, for example, you have SaaS logins, etc. So it's another way of providing access to that. So when you select, say, SAML, etc. over here, right? I'll be getting into how exactly SSOs work and what we do over there. But for now, just understand that using this, your authentication where user is you and password is you and 2FA is it actually you, right, is being done externally. And this external service is going to tell cloud that this user is authenticated and has a role of A, B, C, whatever. Thereby, what that role permissions are, that is something that we've defined in the permission policies of it. I am discussing roles with regard to IAM at the moment. I will discuss roles in regard to resources at a later stage when we are actually looking at the resources. Any questions on this?
No.
No.
No,
Okay.
no, sir.
Perfect. All right. One more thing that I just want to touch on over here. Let me just see if this exists. I think we'll have access to it. Okay, we'll do this in probably at a later lab level because you will not have this access at this lab level at the moment. Okay, but what I wanted to just discuss with you is, yeah, we can do this at the moment. Okay, you see something called as a permission boundary over here, right? So there is a concept again of permission boundaries, and this is fairly important. Is, for example, I have a user, right? I have given them, say, admin access, right? And I want to make sure that they only stick on, say, a specific region, right? Or if you've given them a different kind of access, say EC2 kind of access, like a full access, and I want to make sure that they don't start intruding spaces where I don't want them to, or I don't want that to start becoming a mess in a way. So let me give you a better example. For example, if you have a user, right, which basically has, say, full access on all my instances, right? In this scenario, if this user does get compromised tomorrow for some reason, right, and they start using this user to poke into other things, like say go into IAM or go into any of the X services that I have, right? What you can do is, just to be sure that tomorrow somebody can come here and by mistake add, say, IAM star, for example, right? Somebody has gained access to it, somebody has gained another profile to it, and they want to do, they can come to any other service and start accessing it. What you can do is start defining something as a boundary around this. What that boundary says is that this user, apart from EC2, on resources, say star, cannot do anything. You can ask me, but hey, I've already defined that in the permission policy, so why do I need to start setting a boundary here? So what permission policies do is that you can use another user or misuse a user to go and add more permissions in the permission policies that we have for a specific role or user. But if a specific user has a permission boundary, even if that role, or sorry, even if the permission policy has access defined, but the permission boundary does not have that access defined, it will still deny it. Why and how do we use this is, for example, you have multiple instances running. Okay, and you have your entire environment running over here. and you have a policy attached to this, say as app1. This also has app1. This has app2. This say has also app2, right? What these permission policies, or what I'm talking about here in terms of these, are that they have a policy defined here as, for example, okay, and these have a policy defined as, all right. Now, for example, if this application says or just writes into a database, for example, okay, and this application is only reading from here to publish data. Tomorrow, if any of these instances get compromised, right, or my network gets compromised, and an attacker, what they want to do is they don't have access to this part, so they only have read access here. But they say, okay, these applications do have right here. So what I want to do is I want to start applying policy app1 on these machines. Okay, what this would end up doing is that if I don't have a boundary established, this role will be able to go and apply here as well and apply here as well. So where I had a access mechanism of only read, using a different role for that, they also started applying right here because I had defined an over permissive policy over here. But if you had bounded this by saying that these can only apply to resource this and resource this, and it cannot do anything apart from this. So if I come here, I cannot do anything apart from this, and I cannot do anything apart from this over here. No matter what anybody does and tries to even establish or switch or gather access or elevate privileges for this, right? It will not allow it to do it. Because what you've said is that this role or this access level cannot do anything apart from this. So where this is useful is where you have shared environments or where you have a single user being applied to multiple instances or multiple say databases, or where badly designed systems are there where we have a single user, or where people generally what they do is they take a system user or a like a central user and start using that for deployments. Now that central user, what they do is they give it full access by saying, okay, this user, because it's an automation user and nobody has access to it, will be able to go do whatever it wants in the account, right? Without realizing that if this user gets compromised, it actually has full access into my entire account and I can do whatever I want. But for example, I do not want it to go ahead and delete, say, databases, etc. for it. So what you can do is instead of going and changing policies one by one and saying, okay, I will start doing it on resource 1, resource 2, resource 3, resource 4. I just set up a boundary to tell you that, okay, although you have access to everything, but you do not have access to delete my resources. You do not have access to delete my trails. You do not have access to delete my access logs. So tomorrow, even if this user does get compromised somehow, they will still not be able to go ahead and delete any of my logging or trailing that I'm trying to do. Any questions on this?
No, Dhruv, we are good.
All right. Okay. Let's see if we have access to this here. Okay. All right. Folks, just take a 10-minute break. We'll come back and we'll start setting up an environment. Specifically, we'll start from the outer layer and we'll start moving inwards then. So I'll see you at about 11:35. Just take a 10-15 minute break and we'll come back. Hi folks, are we back? Folks, are we back?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Dhruv. We are back.
All right. Okay. Before we begin getting into VPCs, I just want you to test out a couple of things for IAM, just so that you understand a few things. We have three users here, right? Which we have, say, user one, user two, user three. The difference between them is something that this user is not assigned to any user group, right? If you come and select user 2 here, you will again see these are not assigned to user groups, right? If we want to summarize groups or we want to give people access to multiple groups, right, or multiple permissions without having the need to define a single sign-on or roles, right, we can create something called as user groups. And in user groups, what you can do is you can define permissions by saying, okay, these people, whoever I assign to this permission boundary of this group, will be able to do so actions. Okay, so let's do something. Let's just come to users again. And in user one, just come to groups and say add user to groups over here. And just select EC2 admin over here and click on add to groups. Once you do this, just come to security credentials again, and you will see something called as a console sign-in link. Just copy this link and open it in a new tab. You should see something like this.
Yeah.
Now, because we are not the root user here, so what we will do is, and we want to log in using the user one account that we've created, right? So in IAM username, it will just be user one. Okay. Just give me a second. And if you go back to your lab one over here, you will get the password for this user here itself. So if you come here and we enter the user's password, which is basically lab hyphen password one, and you click on sign in, this should make you log in as user one on this account, right? And now if you try going into IAM, you will see you will not be able to access anything over here. If you come to users, you see you will not be able to access anything over here. And why that is a scenario is because we have only allowed this user to do or run operations on EC2. So we will come to EC2 over here. EC2 is a place where you define all your machines, etc. You click on instances, and here you will be able to say you want to stop this instance. You see, you'll be able to successfully do that. And for example, you want to start this instance. Sorry, just let this shut down. Once you see instance state is stopped, if you want to start this instance, you click on start, it will let you do that. Now, why is it letting you do all of this? If you just click on AWS again from your lab 1 module, we'll come back to the original access we had. And if you come to IAM, and you come to user groups again, and if you click on EC2 admin, you will see that we associated this user here. And in terms of permissions, this user had permissions to start instances, to stop instances, right? On all of them. To check this out again, we do not have access to destroy instances here. So let's go back to this user's console. If you don't want it to log out from here, you can just open it in an incog window. Just check. You use the same username and the password. And if you log in over here again and you go to EC2, and this time instead of stop or reboot, just collect terminate instance, you will see a failure occurring here. And why we are seeing this is because in the group that we had added, right? And if we look at the policy that is attached, you will see the permissions that we have set up for this user. It doesn't have terminate instances rights over here. Okay. And if we try accessing any other service, like for example, if you want to access storage, just search for S3 and click on that. You will again see that you don't have permission to do this. But this time, if you go into user groups, for example, if I do want access to access storage, right? I see a permission policy as read-only access here for S3. And if you do want to add a user in this group, let's just select user 1. Okay. Now, if you see it, you'll be able to access this. So tomorrow, if you're an organization who doesn't have SSOs, etc. available with you, and you don't have federated logins, etc. available with you, you can go the route where you add multiple users, you give them credentials, but you manage them centrally in forms of user groups. You can create as many groups as you want over here. So you come here, you can name whatever group you want. You can add a user already that you have, and over here you can select any policy that you want. If there is no predefined policy over here, you can come and create a policy, and once that policy is created, then you can attach it over here. Any questions on this?
No.
All right. 1 second, I see if this opens.
Do we need to do side by side, or we can watch and we can do it later?
If you can do it now, it's good, because if you face any issues or any queries, we can do it right away, because we will need all of these things when we are creating the infra for us.
Yeah, I'm finding it very slow actually. I'm checking your video. I'm going back to my this thing. Okay.
Dhruv,
Okay.
one question, like if a user has like two, three policies, say like one is admin policy and one is having only allowed to S3 policy, for example. So which one gets a preference?
So you're saying one user has admin, one user has only read, right?
Yeah, it has two policies. One is, say, for example, the admin whole policy, and one is only S3 policy, which can access only S3.
Okay. Uh, Without answering that question, I would want you to try it out, right? So do something. This is only a read-only access policy, right? So to answer your question, let's do something. Let's add this to user one. Okay. If you come to user
It
groups,
is it is both allow, right? So I am admin will stay, but if it says S3 deny, and then I am admin will not able to access S3. But if it is allow S3, then it is all up.
yep. But I just want them. So he's asking a different question, like one has admin, one has read only. So which one will take preference, or which one will look at it? So
So like admin access is there having access to all the resources, and also second policy which says only access to the S3 policy. So can the user access IAM or EC2, for example?
so in IAM, there's a concept of deny by default, right? So whatever you see in terms of policies or permissions, what we do something called as allow, right? Now, to answer your question, if you have even 10 policies and if they coincide with each other, or say that, okay, one has like more permissions than the other one,
Yeah.
as long as you don't deny anything in the policy, it will work. So for example, if you have a policy which says full admin and then you apply over read only, right? You will get, for that instance, you will be able to use the full admin part of it. But for example, if you had full admin and if I created a policy of denying you access to EC2 only, right? If I create a policy EC2 deny access, right? In that scenario, even though you have full admin, and if I attach both policies, you will not be able to open the EC2 instances out. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, somewhat got. Probably when I try it, then
Very
I'll see.
simply,
Yeah.
yeah, very simply, if
So
you have,
here you need to deny.
yeah,
Explicit deny has to be there to override the allow.
yes,
So if you are like giving a user as the complete admin policy and say, for example,
Hmm.
in the course of job functions, he has acquired other policies like S3 policy, IM policy, EC2 policy, all those will not matter if you give the
no,
admin
Hmm.
policy.
as long as all of those are in allow, it will not matter because they see two allows does not make one allow more better than the other. As long as, so think of this that you have 30 checkboxes, right? When you originally gave them access, you gave them all 30 checkboxes, you ticked them. Now, when you saying that, okay, now his role is changed, so I want him to, give them allow on another policy also. As long as those 30 checkboxes are ticked, the second policy is also just ticking those 5 checkboxes, right? So those 30 checkboxes, 30 out of 30 were ticked. You attached another policy which was ticking another 5 of them, which are the same thing because they were already ticked. Now, if you attach a deny policy, out of the 30, if you're saying denying for one service, then out of the 30 now 29 are ticked. That deny policy will actually go untick that box.
Okay, so
But
let's put it like this. Like in the AWS, sorry, in the admin access, you have given all the access except S3. Okay.
okay,
And you have a another role, I mean, another permission with that S3 policy, which has the complete S3 admin access.
okay,
So you mean to say that will not work, right? I
it
mean,
will
I
work.
understand.
It will work.
Okay.
I'll tell you
But
why.
again, yeah.
If so, consider this, right? In admin, consider these to be policies we're attaching for multiple services, right? Now, when you gave admin, you basically added rights for all these policies except one of them. Okay, let's consider this. This is to be S3. Okay, you did
Okay.
not give that person right on S3.
Yeah.
So when they open everything else, they'll be able to do it. But when they click on S3, they'll get an access denied.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now you create another policy which has only S3 full access.
Right. S3 full admin. Yeah.
Now you take this and you attach this to this user. What
Right.
in essence it does is it gives them access to this as well because this is doing just S3 full access. So now when this user actually goes and opens S3, they will also get allowed, but not by the admin policy, but by this policy that you've attached.
Even if within the permission boundary.
Even if you put in the permission boundary, yes.
Okay.
Okay. Now, if you create this policy, or if I had an original policy where admin access was given on everything,
Mm-hmm.
right? And now I create another policy by saying that S3 deny. Okay. I create a policy by saying S3 deny. And I take this policy and I go attach it to this user. Okay. What
Yeah.
this would do then is that this user would have access on everything. But when they click on S3, it will actually go see, okay, here you had allowed it, but there is an explicit deny also being set here. It will honor the deny there. So if you're asking me precedence, deny takes precedence over allow.
Got it, sir.
But
Yeah,
that
this
is
was.
explicit deny, right?
Yeah, explicit deny.
Okay. Okay.
So in AWS, actually, one concept is there: deny, allow, deny.
Yeah,
By that we can understand.
yeah, we will. We will eventually. I want to do it via creating resources and all that. So once we get there, we'll do it there.
Okay.
Any other questions? Let's see if we
No, no
can.
question.
So let me see if we can create a policy in this role or not. Just give me one second. Okay, we'll do it a little later once we have the permissions for that. Any other questions on this?
No, Dhruv, we are good.
Right, okay. What you can do is just come to this lab and just end this lab here. You can let this terminate, that is fine. And just come to modules and just scroll down to, yeah, just scroll down to lab 2 and just click on this and launch this one. Okay. Uh, when you're doing that, what we're going to basically be doing is now setting up this entire concept. And once I keep doing this, I'll keep explaining to you what we're doing as well. Idea here is that we construct a basic lab setup for us, and then we'll start using different concepts in terms of how we can start restricting from IAM, from policies, from gathering details in terms of logs, etc. Then we'll start securing them one by one.
Yeah, this is taking time actually.
Yeah, it takes about 4 5 minutes to come up.
So just one question here, basic one. What is the significance of this remaining session time? So it is like overall 4 hours are assigned for the practice and all.
So basically, this lab gets killed in 4 hours. After that, you can just it'll end the lab. You'll have to start the lab again. So the only
Okay.
significance is that this session basically gets terminated. So the session that you're creating is valid for 4 hours. It's not like your work will get deleted at the back end or something. It's just that your session gets terminated.
Right.
But here resources are already created. No?
Yeah.
And one more question, like when we were doing the initial module, we paid for the resources, right? Here, how it is going to work?
I'm sorry. The what?
When we did our cloud security module one, where we paid for the resources, right, in Azure.
Yeah.
So how it happens in AWS? So
So you're
right now
talking.
we are in training module, so it's for completely free of cost, something like this.
Yes. There's no credit system here.
In AWS, there is a free tier, Abhishek.
So free
You can
tiers exist.
create your
Yeah.
account.
Free tier also exists in all the other clouds as well. Some have a predefined that we'll give you so many credits, and then you whatever you're creating, we keep minusing from that. In AWS, it's a little different in terms of they bill you for certain services which are not in the academy part. But if you create your own account itself, they will only charge you for say network traffic in and out. That's it. They won't charge you for resources if you're using the free tier part. Just let me know once your lab is up, and you can just click on VPC and come here.
Yeah, I see one default one and one VPC.
Just hang on, just wait for everybody to come up, and then we'll do it.
So Dhruv, I am facing a challenge that it is saying that Amazon Web Service sign in. It is asking for that.
Just share screen
It
once,
is saying
please.
please confirm. Okay, just a minute. Different system. I think I don't have rights for that. I've logged in as a guest or something.
Give me 1 second.
It is saying only meeting organizers and presenters can share.
Just check now.
Yeah, can you see my screen?
Yes. Just this. Just close the management console one as well.
Log out here. I clicked log out, and because the last session we just closed the tab, right? So if you
Yeah.
didn't log out, then it will take that session.
Shall I just cross it?
No, just go on just click on the top right, where you see a small arrow. Yeah, just click on sign out.
Yeah.
Now just go to your lab 2. Just close this window and just go to your lab 2. And yeah, now just click on AWS. Yep, that should work. Okay. What we're going to be doing here is you can use the existing VPCs as well if you want, but what we're going to be doing is we're going to be creating a network here for us, right? In terms of VPCs, why do we require multiple VPCs? Why do people use them? Why can't we do everything in one? Anybody has any idea?
Sorry,
I'm
why
saying
why we use different VPCs
why do we need to segregate uh, say network, or why do we need to have multiple VPCs? Why can't we just have everything in one? And
for
by
better
VPCs, I mean
management,
just look, that's it. So
better
you see,
management, better security controls.
okay. Anybody else? Anything?
Segregation of responsibility. We are not like
Okay. What else?
Business requirements, compliance requirements. Means if both the VPCs are in different regions.
Okay. All right. Anything else? Okay. All of you are right, majorly over there. There are multiple reasons and the same concepts for basically network segmentation and physical network segmentation concepts come up. So that's why we create multiple VPCs as well. Some people tend to create a very large CIDR block, uh, like on /16/8 as well. Uh, for just examples right now, and what we're going to be doing is we'll create little smaller blocks just to understand how they work, what we can do, and stuff like that, right? So first things first, just type VPC on top, and if you click on VPC you land on this page, and then just click on your VPCs, you should see one of them created. I mean, one of them is default. So whenever we say a hyphen, that's a default VPC, which is created when you create your AWS account itself. And a work VPC is basically been created by the lab setup itself. So what we'll do is we'll create smaller blocks just to gather more intel and details about how this works. So click on create VPC over here. Now you will see you will see something called as VPC only here and VPC and more, right? If you click on VPC and more, you will get your subnets, your route tables, your network connectivity, etc. also created. But what we'll do is we'll do all of this manually just to get more insights into it. But otherwise, you can do everything from a single setup in terms of network connectivity. And how network connectivity exactly works is in VPCs, you can have something called as subnets. These can be one, this can be many, up to you. Okay. If you want to subnet it, then we'll have to create a little larger block. So let's do that. Let's just create one for now so that we don't land up in confusions, right? In this, we will create something called as subnets, and each subnet has something called as a route table, right? This route table can be one for both, or you can have individual route tables as well for both the subnets, depends on how you want to set it up. Route table does nothing but tells you what type of connectivity does this subnet have with your VPC or within each other or within subnets as well, right? Now, additionally, for this to work, we have something called as an IGW, right? An IGW is nothing but an internet gateway that we set up. This is for any communication that we want to make to the outside world needs to go through the IGW in itself, right? Any interconnectivity that we do, that by default is enabled in the VPC, so we don't need an IGW for that, right? Only if we want to talk to the internet or we want traffic to come in and hit any of the instances that we create over here, do we require an IGW for that? Okay, so to start with, what we'll do is we'll start with a VPC right now. Just do a VPC only. We'll create them manually so that you can understand what we're doing at each step. You can just name them whatever you want at this point of time. In IPv4 CIDR manual input, you can give any subnet range that you want. It's up to you. Just make sure it doesn't clash with any of the subnets that you have at the moment. So all you need to do is give a name, select a subnet CIDR, and then just click on create VPC. Once you click on this, it'll show you a screen over here, and you will see something called as a main route table and a main network ACL. So whenever you create a VPC, it creates one route table for you by default. So this is your default route table. If you want to see which one was created for you, you can just click here. Right, in this it publishes routes. So what this does is it allows all local connectivity within my VPC itself. So by I said that for now, if you forget this and if I don't want to send traffic outbound, then interconnectivity within this entire VPC is basically getting taken care of by this default route table that we have. So this will just basically give you your destination, which will be your VPC CIDR, and it will set up a local network for you.
Yeah.
The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to create a subnet for us. So we've created the VPC for now. I'll go step by step here, but we've created the VPC for now. We'll create one subnet here for us. So you can just come here, click on create subnet, select your own VPC, just call this subnet, just name it as yours. Just name it as a public subnet. Availability zone, just selected as US East 1A. You can select any of them, it's up to you. So availability zone is nothing but various data centers that exist in North Virginia. So there are say 6 of these. So you can launch them in any one of them, or I mean, you can just decide pick up any one, 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D. Just make sure that you're following the same convention after that. In CIDR, you can just decide to cut a block any way that you want. So if you want to give it a little larger block, so I have 255 IPs that I can spawn in here. And then you just click on create subnet. You will see the subnet getting created. You will see that you have 251 IPs. That's because I created a CIDR as /24. And you will see a route table assigned to this, which basically is nothing but your default route table, which enables connectivity within your VPC. Why I named it public subnet is I will come back to that and explain it to you. So what we've done is we've created a VPC now. We've created one subnet here, right? Let's create another subnet. This one, just name it as your private subnet. I'll explain to you why we're doing this. In this, just select a different block. And you can create it then. So in sum total, what we've done up till now is created a VPC and created two subnets. One I've labeled as public, one I've labeled as private. If you see the route tables for this, you'll see the same default route table being attached to both subnets.
True, can we go give same availability zone for both subnets?
Yeah, you can. You can. I've also done that. I've just kept it in one zone for simplicity. Once you're done creating these subnets, I don't want you to create anything else right now. What we will do is we will just launch one machine in this subnet and we will launch one machine in this subnet for now. Okay, so to launch machines, what we'll do is we'll just go to something called as EC2. You click on instances and you click on launch instances. Okay, you call this an instance subnet public. So I'm just launching one machine here. You can just click on Amazon Linux because it's free tier, so you don't need to do anything over here. In instance type also you can leave it as free tier. But in key pair name, you will need to come here and create a new key pair. So this is how we will access this instance, right? So just click on create new key pair. Just name it whatever you want to. If you're using a Mac, you can use the PEM format. If you're using a Windows machine, just click on .ppk over here because then you will be able to use it with putty, etc. So just whatever you're using, if you have OpenSSH or using Ubuntu, then you can just use PEM directly. Just create this key pair accordingly and it will download a file and give it to you. And in the next steps, under firewall, so under network settings, just click on edit. And over here, select your VPC. Select one subnet that you've created. Leave the auto assign public IP to disable. And in security group, just add any name. You can leave the description as you want, it's up to you. And in the security group, you can just select for now as all traffic and just select it as all for now. So just going over it again, create an instance, name it. You can let it be as Amazon Linux, doesn't matter. Instance type you can leave as is. Key pair, you need to create a new key pair. Once you click on create new key pair, if you're using Windows, select .ppk. If you're using Mac or Ubuntu, select .pem. Put your name for the key pair. Once you click on create, it will download a file for you, whether it's a .pem or .ppk as you selected. Then come to your network settings. In your network settings, select your VPC which we just created. Select one subnet that we've just created. auto assigned public IP should be disabled. In security groups, you can just click on create security groups, put in the name that you want, and I've just allowed all traffic for now. So I've just done selected type all traffic and selected protocol and port range as all. If you select all traffic, those will be basically blanked out. So that is what you will see. The rest, I have not touched any other settings, and I'm going to be launching the instance here. Folks, any confusion, etc., please let me know. I'll show you the process again. Just give this a minute or two. You should see this instance coming up and you should see one private IP address coming here. Similarly, this time launch another machine, but launch it in the other subnet that you have. So remember we created two subnets. Just launch this in the other subnet that you have. Same settings, you don't need to change anything else, but just launch it in the second subnet.
In network setting only we need to select that second subnet, right? Other settings will be similar.
Yes, for everything else it will remain same. Key pair, if you want, you can create another one, but it's not required. You can just use the same key pair as well. But only in network settings you need to edit it. You need to select your VPC. You need to select the other subnet, and you can just select the existing security group that you had created earlier as well, or you can just create a new one, whatever you want. For more distinction, if you want, you can create another one in case then you modify values and you won't need to do anything else. So I recommend creating a different security group for sure. So in a sense, what we've done is we've created two machines now, and one of them is in one subnet, one is in the other subnet. Oops. Once you're done till here, let me know. I'll proceed further.
It's done. Shall we raise hands?
I'm sorry.
Shall we raise hands if it's done? Because others needs to complete it.
Yeah, just raise your hands. I'll see. What about the rest? I see 2 of you have done. Should I just wait a couple of more minutes? All right. I'm assuming everybody's done. Okay. What we've done is we created a VPC, we've created a subnet, we've created another subnet, we've launched one machine here, we've launched one machine here, right? Assumption is that because both these subnets have a route table which allows inter VPC communication, so machine 1 to machine 2 can communicate, but because we are sitting outside here at the moment, right, there is no way for us to tell whether we can actually access this machine right now because there is no path for us to actually come in here, right? Now what we're going to be doing is we're going to be creating a path for us to come into these machines, right? And how we will do that is we will go back to VPC. We will go back to a subnet. Any one subnet we'll pick up. We'll go to route table. We'll click on edit route table association, or let's do something. Let's just create another one just so that we don't face any issues. So you just come to route table, click on create route table, give your route table a name, select your VPC and just click on create route table. Now, when we've done this, we basically created a route table here, right? Let's also create another route table for this subnet as well. So just come to route tables again, say click create route table. Select your VPC again and say create. So now what I've done is I've selected or created two subnets. I've created two machines. I've created two route tables now, right? Time to get it all linking. So what we're going to do first is we'll come to something called as internet gateway. I'll explain why we're creating this, but just come to create internet gateway and just call it.
Group, just sing one question. Route table we have created, we have assigned direct from VPC. So it's still we haven't segregated whether it is in subnet one or subnet two, right?
We haven't
done the subnet one.
Yeah, we haven't
Yeah,
associated with the subnet at the moment. We've only got these two route tables to hit a VPC at the moment. That's it. So we'll do
yeah.
that in a bit.
Okay. Okay.
Next thing is go to internet gateways, create an internet gateway. Once you create it, its actions or state will be detached. You can just come here and go to actions and click attach to VPC, and you select your VPC and you attach it. So all I've done is create a internet gateway. Once you're creating it, just put a name here. The moment you create it, it will be in a detached state. Just tick it and click on actions and click attach to VPC and select your own VPC that you need. Also, when you're here in the internet gateway, just click on this and just copy the internet gateway ID from here. And now come in our route tables. Click any of the route table that we created. Go to routes. Click on edit routes. Add a route on 0000/0. You can also come here, click on internet gateway and select your internet gateway, or you can just simply paste that value as well directly. And then click on save changes. Do this for both your subnets. Once you're done with this, let me know. I'll explain what we're doing then.
But why private subnet we are routing to IGW?
Just for now, leave the terminology aside. I've just created that for future sakes because I'll be using it. For now, I'm just doing it because I want to connect to the instance. That's why I'm saying don't go name terminology. What I'm using, just use your own terminologies at the moment. We will be doing that later for a private subnet as well. So I didn't want to create them again and again. So I'm just doing it right now for the IGW piece. Let me know once done. I'll explain it to you. Okay, I'm assuming that we completed this. Anybody stuck anywhere I can help out? All right. Like I told you, uh, for any communication that we need to do within the VPC, right? There is already a default local subnet which is set up, or a local link which is set up. So that local link will allow me to communicate anywhere in this VPC CIDR that I've created, right? How do I know that? If you come to your subnets, and if you click on any of your subnet and you go to the route table, you will see that there's a local link which is already created here. Okay. Now, because we are sitting externally to this VPC, we are not inside it because it's a virtual zone. We can't enter it like that. There is one way of entering this at the moment, and what we will do for that is we set up something called as an IGW at the moment, right? An IGW is nothing but an internet gateway, and what this internet gateway would allow us to do is that it would allow us to send our traffic to this internet gateway. It would allow us to at the moment contact this machine and also contact this machine here. Okay. What it would allow us to do is any traffic which is going apart from my local interface, which is my VPC, it will hit this internet gateway. The internet gateway will then send it outside to the world, also to us, because we are the client at the moment. So any communication that you need to send out to the client here or through the outside world, we use the internet gateway to do that. I am still not talking about how our traffic will basically land at the moment. Okay, I'm still just talking about how this machine's traffic is going to reach us. So at the moment, what we'll do is we'll set up this one-way connectivity. So to do that, we come back to our subnets. We select both our subnets over here. We go to edit route table, and you select any of your route table that you have over here, which you've created. At the moment, they're similar. There's no difference in them. So you can select any route table. And you save it. The only difference between this and the original route table that we have is that in these route tables, you have the IGW associated to it. So now if you click on these subnets and if you click on route tables, you will see these coming up over here. So now what we've done is we've established communication one way, but for us to reach these machines over here, if you remember, I made you disable a public IP that we were getting assigned to this. So we would basically assign one pub IP to this machine and another public IP to this machine. So what would happen is traffic from us would hit the IGW and hit this IPs that we have, and traffic going from these machines would go to the IGW and hit us back. So what we will do now is we will go back to our EC2 machines that we have. Go to instances. Select any instance over here. Click on actions. Go to networking. Click on manage IP addresses. Oops, my bad. Let's just go to something called as elastic IPs first. Click on allocate elastic IP. This is optional. If you want to do it, you can do it. Then click on actions and click on associate elastic IP address. Choose one of your instance over here and then click on associate. Similarly, allocate another elastic IP address. Come to actions again, click on associate elastic IP, and this time select the other machine. And click on associate. Now if you go to instances and if you select any one of them, you will see a public IPv4 address coming up over here. Let me know once you're here, all of you. And just to verify if everything is gone right or wrong, just click on any of this instance, click on connect, and you can just use the EC2 instance connect here. You should be able to see something like this come up where you have access in the machine. Similarly, you can do this for the second one also and just check if everything's working.
Dhruv, can you please repeat the elastic IP address once?
Sure.
Because that was
Sure.
like
So
from
what,
start.
yeah. So what you need to do is come to elastic IPs,
Mm.
allocate elastic IP address,
Mm.
right? Here you can just leave this as is also, or if you want to add a name tag, you can just come to tags, the key name you can enter
Okay.
as, and you can enter any name that you want over here. That's fine. It's optional. You don't need to do it for this to happen. If you don't want to do it, it's fine. You can just click on allocate after that.
Okay. Okay.
Once you allocate this, you will see this come up over here.
Yeah, yeah.
You click actions. You click on associate elastic IP address. You choose any of your instances out of the two that you've created.
Okay.
You just this will be by default whatever. So just click on this. You'll be able to select the IP and then just click on associate.
Okay. Good.
Similarly, just repeat this step for the other machine.
Okay.
Once you're done with that, then you should be able, once you come to instances screen, you should see two IP addresses attached here. To validate if things are working, just go to connect and use the EC2 instance connect. You should be able to see both machines. Anybody who's not getting these screens, any issues?
Working fine.
Has everybody else also got the success?
Dhruv, I created workstations after that. I don't have network actually. So I assume that module to level 5, uh, the balance step should be able to help me to, I should be able to complete with the help of that, right?
So you're referring to this?
Yeah, so I was doing it, but then my network went off. So I'm on my mobile net right now. So I created the workstations,
Yeah,
and after
that's
that,
fine.
actually, I'm just noting what you are saying. So I'm just assuming that I should be able to do it with the steps
Yeah,
I've written. And right?
absolutely. So you can follow these same steps as well, so that's fine.
Okay, sure, sure. Thank you.
Dhruv, I have a question on Elastic IP. Should we create only one Elastic IP and associate with the instance?
So just connect it to both machines. Just create one for one machine and the other for the other one.
Oh, okay. So two Elastic IP.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anybody who has any questions on how this is working after we've done all this, all these steps?
Dhruv, I have one question.
Yeah,
For what is the purpose of us this elastic IP?
sure. So what the Elastic IP does is basically because We are attaching an internet gateway right now, right? So the virtual private cloud that you've created is internal. So just think of this to be like a data center internal LAN network only. Okay.
Hmm.
Now what we did is we launched two machines in that LAN. Okay. One machine was say in one subnet of that LAN, another machine was in another subnet of that LAN. Now what I did was I connected an ISP over here to my LAN to say get it on the internet. Okay.
Yes.
But what happens here is that the traffic I want, I can reach if I was sitting inside this network somewhere, I could have used the internal IPs and reached these machines. Okay.
Yeah, but this is external. Yeah.
But because I am not sitting inside the VPC right now, I'm sitting outside on the internet. I need to access this machine here in these subnets. Now, how you would do it in a legacy way is that in your ISP, you would forward it to your switches where or your firewall where you would have done a NAT or something to send that traffic back to this instance. Okay. So what we are essentially doing at the moment is that we gave these machines a public IP address, which is on the internet.
Yeah.
Okay. But how do these machines reach or how does the traffic reach the machines which I'm trying to connect to, or how does it go out to the internet is via the internet gateway. And how is that happening is because in our subnets, I'll just show this to you. Yeah, in our subnets that we've created, we initially only had this destination, which was giving us connectivity in this entire VPC
Local.
flow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then we created an internet gateway and said whatever traffic apart from this internal traffic which comes up, please direct all that traffic to my internet gateway, which is basically acting like an ISP for me. It's a connection towards the internet for it.
Okay.
Right. So because I don't have the concept of NATs and reverse NATs here in cloud, right? At the moment, we don't know it. Okay. So what would be happening at the moment is that the traffic which is basically coming from my client when I'm trying to hit this IP address, it says, okay, I will hit this IGW and get that traffic to land on this machine, which is inside my virtual private cloud. And any response which is going out will basically, it will go through this route table, say, okay, I do not meet this because I'm trying to reach whatever my IP address is, my public IP addresses, which falls here. So it will hit the IGW and the IGW is doing the forwarding for that traffic to me.
Means generally you can say this elastic IP is as a public IP only.
Absolutely.
And
But
does it
if I
does
append,
it change actually or
yeah,
static or it is
once you take an elastic IP, it is yours until you disassociate it or release it.
okay?
Right? But for any one subnet, right? Let's do something. Let's go to edit route table association. Oh, sorry. Let's just go to the route table that we have created for any one subnet, right? And let's remove the route for the IGW.
Yeah, then it should not connect to that.
Exactly. So if you see that, it will not work because although we are sending traffic to this machine on the public IP address, the machine doesn't know how to respond back to you. It has no way to do that.
Okay, that result how you can test?
So it's very easy to do. Just come to route tables, come to public. just any of your route table, one of your route tables, just come to route and just remove the IGW from here.
Okay.
Now what you would see is when you try connecting to this machine over here, it'll just fail to connect. And if you want to test it out from your machine, I made you download a PEM file or a PPK file that we had. So what we can do is we can just open out Putty if you're on Windows, or if you're on Ubuntu or Mac, you can just open a terminal and you can try doing an SSH connection onto this box.
Okay.
Let me just show that to you. So you're not seeing my screen. I'm so sorry. You see my terminal? No.
No, we can't see your screen. We can't.
You see my screen now?
Yeah.
I'll just take any. I'll just use my terminal to connect. So you'll see now this is connecting, right? Because I'm inside the machine, I can do whatever I want over here. Now, for example, this machine that I'm working under, let me just go to this. Okay. I'll take this subnet, I'll go to route table, and table, I'll just keep this IGW off from here, right? You'll
Yeah.
see immediately I lost connectivity here. So whatever I'm typing, I've gone, and if now I try to establish a connection, so now if you try to establish a connection, you won't be able to do it,
Okay.
right? But if I go back here and if I add my route, and if I try
It'll.
again,
Yeah.
it will work. It will just take about, there you go, it works. Okay. So from this perspective, we now are being able to do it, and I can SSH into your machine, you can SSH into my machine, right? Why all this is happening and why it's allowed is if you click on your instance and if you click on security, you will see something called as security groups.
Yeah. Security group.
This is something like a firewall that you can define on layer 3, layer 4.
Okay.
Now, because we have said that everything over here, if you read this rule, we've allowed 22 from all sources, right? If I modify this and again I shut off say port 22, and for example I'll just keep ICMP enabled from everywhere. So I'm enabled ping, but I've shut off everything else to this machine, right? You will see that eventually I will just lose connectivity. So I come here. If I ping this machine, I'm getting a ping response, right? But let me try running an SSH. I won't be able to connect,
Yeah.
right? Similarly, if I want to actually connect to this machine, I'll just come here. I'll say SSH. I'll say for my IP address and I say save. And let's try this out now. You'll see the connectivity comes back.
Uh, then what is basically difference between that first one, that row table and the security groups?
So route table is applicable on the entire subnet, right? If I have 40 machines in this subnet, if I change the route table, all the routes change for those 40 machines.
Okay. Whereas
But
security group is for specific.
group with resource level. So if I want this resource to have access or that resource to have access or some different kind of access, that is something that I can do. Each resource can have its own security group, but a subnet can have only a single route table.
Okay. Got it.
Okay?
And one thing, Dhruv, suppose the first instance which you have created, suppose if it is in different AWS account also. Okay.
You're saying in different AWS accounts.
Yeah. Then also we need to enable the security groups and other thing.
Uh, so for any traffic, any instance which is public or private or anything, you will have to enable a security group on it, right? It's by default, any instance cannot be launched without a security group. What type of access do you want to give to it is a different matter. Even if that instance is in a separate account altogether, right? The security group will not matter. There is a different concept which we will be talking about, which is basically connecting. So even if you have a different account, right? I believe the VPC will be separate for that. So in that scenario, what we do is we connect this VPC to this VPC, right? And then this basically establishes a link from this to this, and then in the route table we just publish this link. So then instead of going to 0000 at the moment, it will then start going to this link over here. But there are some conditions for this, that your subnet should not be clashing. For example, if you also are using 192.168.00.16 over here, right? And you're also using a subnet, what we're using at the moment, which is 192.168.1.0/24. If these subnets exist on the same thing, then I cannot connect this, because then there's going to be a route clash which will happen,
Okay.
right? But yes, that is the concept. We can connect them in, to a different account altogether as well, but we will talk about it. Okay. One more thing, if you go to your VPCs here, you will see something called as a network ACL over here.
Yeah.
You will see your VPC ID and you will see two subnets associated and a network ACL is over here, right? Let's just come here and say create network ACL, and we click on here and select my VPC and just create this network ACL over here. Right? In this, you will see some inbound rules which says everything is allow, and says allow or deny. And you will see some outbound rules which basically says allow or deny. Right? Currently, if you go ahead and go to edit subnet associations and just select any of your subnet in this network ACL, right? Because all of this is on deny at the moment, even if I try establishing a connection again with this machine, it will not work because this is so security groups are like firewalls for resources. A network ACL is a firewall for your entire subnet. So if you want to add any kind of layer 3, layer 4 rules on your entire subnet, where for example, you have created a peer or you want to basically say, okay, in this subnet I have protected information. I don't want it to say communicate on 22 at all. And I don't want to leave it to chance that people disable it in security groups or not. You can just simply take this network ACL and apply a rule to say that on this, on port 22, everything will be denied. Similarly, if you want everything to be allowed, you can just come edit this, add a new rule, say all traffic, and you can say allow. You can just set the precedence, the number should be higher, that's all. By default in Knuckles, everything is deny except you have to go allow it. It's both
Okay.
inbound and outbound. So into the subnet and outbound from the subnet. So you can set up rules in both. Any questions till here?
No, actually, one thing, if you go to the diagram, last thing is, my
Yes.
ask was, if suppose if two instances are there in the same security group,
Mm-hmm.
so basically we no need to allow anything. It automatically gets connected to each other only, no?
If two instances are allowed in the same security group, right? Security group is just going to be instance level. So yes, if they exist and they are in the same security group, then it will mean that from an instance resource level they can communicate. But again,
Means I mean
depend.
to say the Bastion host and the Linux box or Windows box are in same security. Then separately, do we need to open any firewalls or not?
Yes, you do need to. Depends if they're in the same subnet or not. If they're in the same subnet, then they have connectivity. If they're in different subnets, you'll have to see if you've given connectivity, because not everybody allows local all traffic, right? Generally, anything inside the VPC by default is allowed. So as long as they're in the same security group, which allows them to communicate with each other, yes, they will be able to do it. As long as
Okay.
there is no tackle implemented on either one of the subnets, or the routes don't have the local connectivity established for everything.
Yeah. Okay. Got it.
Perfect. Any other questions anybody has? All right. Folks, we'll break for lunch over here and we'll assemble at about 2:30 then. And we'll take it from here. If there are any questions, just let me know and I'll be more than happy to answer them.
And actually, it has been mentioned there is a badge or something certification for this one, Dhruv. like once these labs are completed, it is activated, or how it is?
So this is a course you can basically just take. So there are exams and quizzes in this course itself, right? If you complete all the quizzes and the assignments, you will be able to get that badge.
No, is it any that is AWS practitioner one or any specific kind of thing?
Yeah, so AWS Cloud Foundation is a course which you get basically an AWS certificate or badge for it. It's not the certification that you're looking at. The certification is separate. The badge is basically if you go through all the modules and if you complete the quizzes, then you get a badge for this. Just from AWS Academy that you've gone through the course.
Okay. Okay. Good. Thank you.
Cool. See you guys at 2:30 then. We'll start then. Thanks.
Thanks, Dhruv.
Thank you.